Well, hi there, it's Tiffany from Daisy Farm Crafts, and today I'm going to do a tutorial for you for these mesh stitch hats made with Caron Big Donut Ogo yarn. So I've got some extras here of how these look. Here is this one made in this color. Here's the blue color right here. And I don't have an extra donut of this one. It was called oatmeal. This one was called blue velvet, and honestly, what was the mint julep was the green one. You can see them all here. I really love how they turned out. This Caron Ogo seriously crochets up. It was very similar to me, like fine merino wool. Washable fine merino wool, has a lot of bounce and is just super soft. And we've been kicking these around and wearing them and trying them on Annie. I'm going to do a photo shoot with Annie here in the next little bit, but really like them. And I just thought you guys would like to see how the different colors can be worked out. Of course, you could put those any different rotation of colors at all, so any way you want. But anyway, okay, let's get started with the tutorial. For this tutorial, you will need two different hook sizes. You'll need an H and a J. H is a 5mm and a J is a 6mm size crochet hook. Okay, now let's get started. Okay, so first we've got to get into this package. Here is what an Ogo looks like, and you just take the packaging off like this. And down here you'll find that there is a plastic kind of little tag that's holding the whole thing together. Grab your scissors, snip it apart like that, and then you simply pull the plastic right out of it. So we are going to also separate each one of these because we are going to use them individually. Now, the handy thing about this is that they are all connected. So if you wanted to use it as one big skein, you can. If not, these colors are kind of, this one's pretty similar in color. So we're going to clip that one apart, set it aside, clip these two apart, and they just really do easily pull apart. Let me kind of find where the color changes. These colors are so similar. I'll just kind of pick in there, separate that one. Here we've got the green. That one was a little bit easier to see. And then separate these. They're all about the same amount of yardage. So, but I've noticed that they do sometimes come in different color placements. So it depends. Okay, so that is how. Now, if you're gonna not be able to make this hat in one session, definitely grab like a gallon-size Ziploc bag and insert these into the Ziploc bag because they're kind of loose. We're going to be pulling from the outside. This is how they remain tangle-free. It's easy to do that. But these ones on this side are just a little bit looser, so I actually found if I had to pull from the middle, I was fine. Okay. All right, feel free to choose whatever color you would like for the brim. And I think for me, for this one, I will do the lightest color for the brim. And then the color changes of the hats. No, actually, these two are so similar in color. I think I'm gonna swap that out and I'll use this one for the brim. And then alternate between those. Well, let's get this started by just making a slip knot and chaining 20. So we have 20 chains here. Let's work one single crochet starting in the second chain from the hook we will work one single crochet into each chain. And that will give us a total of 19. I chained one at the end of the row, and I'll go ahead and turn my work. And here we go with our 19 in the first stitch. I like to work a regular single crochet. And then in the next 17 stitches, I like to work in the back loop only. I just think this gives the brim of the hat just a slightly neater looking appearance. Now in the last stitch, I will go ahead and work underneath both loops. So I do a regular single crochet. Chain one and turn your work. Now repeat that until you have 68 rows. Okay, I have 68 rows here, and I'm measuring it to be about 18 inches, but it stretches. This is one thing about the Ogo, is it's got a lot of bounce to it, which I like, and so the stretch around it would stretch out to 22 inches. I also test this around my head. I have an average sized woman's head. Most women's heads are 22 inches. So this is where you would adjust for a child. You could go smaller, so say 18, you would need 4 inches less. You could go an inch more if you need that 23-inch head width, but this is where you could make that adjustment for the size. But like I say, just measure it against your head, wrap it around your head, make sure it feels just comfortable, not too loose, not too tight. Of course, this is definitely going to be folded up. That's part of the hat. Okay, so now we need to sew the two ends together so that we can have our brim. So what I like to do is, we'll just make this really easy. We'll sew it together with a slip stitch. So match up your stitches. I'm going to insert my hook on just the back side of that single crochet loop, and then on the underside of the starting chain through both of those. So I'm going into the back loop and underneath both loops of the starting chain. So I'll work my way down, sewing this together with a slip stitch. And at the end, go ahead, give it a little chain one, kind of pull that free, because we're going to kind of take a look at this. This is what your seam looks like here. And then you're going to, let's look at it from this side. And when you have your hat put together, we're going to be able to, this is the side, you kind of have to turn it inside out, because I am choosing to have this show on the outside of the hat because it looks kind of like an extra ribbing. But it's completely up to you. This side, if you don't care, pick either one. But that's kind of what I'm going to do. Turn it inside out. Okay. Now is the time where we change hook sizes. You are done with the H. But we are going to use the last remaining bits of this yarn before we are done with it. So we are going to work around the hat in this direction. I think this is the easiest way to see. So turn your hat if you need to. We're going to be working around the inside of the hat. You're going to work 2 single crochets around the end of one row, skip a row, and go to the next row with 2 single crochets. So we're working in pairs at the end of one row. And then skipping a row. So I'm kind of choosing to do these in the valley here, kind of the little dip. Now here's where we're at the end, and I've worked pairs all the way around. In the last one right here, I only want you to work 1. We need to have an odd number, okay? And then slip stitch, or at least insert your hook underneath that very first stitch. We are done with this color. So leave yourself a long tail and clip that off. Okay, before we start adding color, there's just some choices that you need to make. I personally liked figuring out and doing a dark light, dark-ish light. In the other brands of Ogo, you really could choose. So here's what one version looks like, but then look at this version. They're just a little bit different with what color pops up facing you, because here's what the inside of this hat looks like. It resembles more that hat. So you can decide which you like, but I'll tell you how to achieve this look. Say you like this look. This is the back side of the stitch. So you would work the lighter color when you're working around the inside of the hat. If you want it to appear like this is the dark side, then the dark colors are worked when you're working around the inside of the hat, or yeah, because these are the back sides of the stitches. So the little bit is what's facing you. So here's the inside of this hat. They resemble more. So it does have 2 appearances. Why this is important though is because you need to carry your yarn, I haven't woven these in, all on the inside. And so that's why you need to pick which version you like. If you don't care, just get to crocheting and it really will work out. So I am going to make this hat though, because I am going to chain 1 and turn and be working on the outside of the hat. I want the dark side to be a little bit more buried on the inside of the hat, so it'll kind of look like this. Okay, so I'm going to pick that one. So it's a little bit opposite what you think. The dark side will show less when you're working it around the front of the hat, if that makes sense. Okay, here's my end. So I've gone ahead and I want to make sure let's keep this tail to the inside before we insert our hook into the first starting stitch and pull through. And we'll be able to carry that to the inside in just a second. But anyway, chain 1 and turn your work. Now we work the mesh stitch, and let's make that first single crochet into the first single crochet of this round. And let's go ahead and place a stitch marker in this stitch so that you'll know that that is the stitch that you will be slip stitching to at the end of this round. Chain 1, skip 1 single crochet into the next stitch. and then repeat. Single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet into the next stitch. So work this mesh stitch, which is the combo of single crochet, chain 1, skip 1 stitch all the way around the hat. Okay, here we are. This is the last stitch of the round right here, kind of where this tail is poking up. That's how we know that's the last spot to work into. So I've already worked my chain 1. I insert my hook and work my last complete single crochet. And I'm just kind of having to pull that tail to the inside. Now, this is where we'll slip stitch. Here's my marked stitch. And say you have trouble knowing what the last stitch of each round is, go ahead and move your marker over here to this last stitch that we worked. Okay, so now let's insert our hook, and we'll not cut this dark green. I'm going to go ahead and pick this lighter green. Pull through. Kind of leave this a longer tail, and this is just a little bit fussy until you get those first 4 rows done. Okay, chain 1, turn your work. This is the first stitch to work into. And sometimes the reason why I like to mark that is because it can get confusing with the slip stitch and the turning chain. Okay, so I'm going to mark the first stitch of this round again. Chain 1, insert my hook into the next single crochet, chain 1, insert my hook into the next single crochet, chain 1, insert my hook into the next single crochet. So from now on, we only will be working into the tops of the single crochets. Okay, trying to decide how to tell you that this is the last stitch of the row right here is I kind of just always look for the tail, but that tail won't always be there. Anyway, that is the last single crochet to make. And then at least this stitch marker totally helps me to know that this is the stitch to slip stitch into. Okay, now before I slip stitch though, I want to make sure my yarn stays to the inside. Okay, insert my hook. Let's go for the next color. Cross it on over, pull it through, tuck this end in. Sometimes you have to give this a tug. And now it does get messy, but it's a good messy, and it's only for 20 rows. And since this hat turns out so colorful and pretty, I was like, well, it's worth it. Okay, so here's my tail poking out here. Make sure this one's tucked to the inside, but that's where my last stitch is worked. Just like that, end with a single crochet, insert your hook over here. It's like we have one last, our 4th color to add. Pull it through, leave that tail, chain 1 and turn, Work right into that very first single crochet that you see. Okay, here is our final single crochet of the round, just like that. Carry that in. Okay, now we're ready for round 5. That first color that we used was the green. So find, that's the green tail. That's what I was going to say. Pull that out. Keep that tucked down. Here's the end. So before we slip stitch, make sure all the ends are tucked to the inside. Kind of bring this one to the back of your work. Then insert your hook and grab it and pull it through. Chain 1. Turn your work. And here we go. So do you see what I mean? How the dark green kind of gets buried when we're working on the outside of the work, and the light color shows. So that's the back of that green stitch. It's a little bit thicker. So that's what you're going to want to decide if that matters to you at all. Okay, so no cutting, just pull up the new color in the sequence that we used them and work until you have 20 rows. And then I'll show you how we're going to decrease. All right, here we go. So this is what your hat should look like. This is the blue one that I've taken to this stage. And I have got 20 rows of color switches, including the very first one where we worked those single crochets, the first round in this color. And then I start, so technically this is row number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. This is row 20. So what we do is I've already chained 1 and turned and worked my first single crochet. We will work this mesh stitch into the first 7 single crochets. So I like to just count the single crochets. It makes it a lot easier to keep track of how many we've got here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's our 7th single crochet. We will still chain 1, but in the 8th single crochet is going to be crocheted across a single, a chain, and a single. We're just going to combine those together with a single crochet 2 together. So insert your hook, pull up a loop, skip the chain, insert your hook, pull up a loop into the next single crochet. There you go. So that's our 8th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's repeat that. Chain 1, still always chaining across a chain. Now let's work the mesh stitch across the next 7 single crochets. Now let me show this to you again. Still chain 1. It's just the 8th single crochet is going to be together kind of across those 3 stitches. They become 1. Here's the last stitch. I'm still keeping my tails to the middle. Gotta reach down here. It's time for me to pull up with the gray. Oh, and what I was going to say is that even though we still did it on the 8th, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on the 8th one, we weren't really able to do anything, just work it like normal. That's totally okay. So on this next round, we will do the exact same thing, and we still will run out of the exact even count, towards the end. That's totally fine too. We're just trying to do a gentle easing in of the stitches until we gather it in at the top. Still chain 1 and then reduce. And look, that second leg is actually that other. That's okay. The combined. Just treat it as one single crochet, that single crochet, 2 together. And continue stitching the pattern all the way around. You'll do this for the next 4 rows. All right, once you kind of have decreased in, this is my 25th round, you will never be so happy as to slip stitch and cut all those tails that you've been dragging along with you. Here, let me finish this round. One last single crochet. I will slip stitch this, and I'll give myself a pretty long tail so I have plenty of room to sew with on this one. I'll be cinching it tight. Pull that through. And then on these ones for the inside, I'll give myself some long sewing tails. Yay, I'm free. And then look at how much you do have left. So I kind of go ahead and take the time to rewind these into balls and set them aside for another project, or I almost would experiment and see if I could make another hat out of this, which I should do. But anyway, it's time to weave in those ends before we close it. But this is what the inside of the hat will look like when you're carrying yarn. So we really only have these tails to weave in, and then these ones up here. So with all those color changes, I don't think that's that bad. But anyway, I'll get my tapestry needle working. So you'll take a tapestry needle and thread it through. And we'll weave in and out of these stitches around the top and pull the hat the rest of the way in together. So I just kind of go in and out. Okay, just pull that tight, and then you can work your needle around a couple more times to make sure it's nice and secure. Now, after you have your hat pulled tight together, if you would like to attach a fur pom-pom that has these elastic things on them, I just purchased these at Joann's or at Michael's. I've seen them at Walmart. I know you can get them on Etsy if they have that. This is the tag right there. Get that off. That's a plastic thing. So say you want this, the easiest way I have learned is to go ahead and with your thread, grab a button. Make sure you can thread the needle through. I actually off camera changed needles. I had a tapestry needle. This one's a little bit thinner, so I can work it down through. You're going to put this button on the underside, inside of the hat. Thread your needle down, find one of the holes. So here I've found one of the holes. Thread it back up. And then go back up the other side. So we want this to be a button under there. Kind of gives your hat some stability. Okay, it looks like I've gathered in some of my ends there. I should weave those ends in. Weave those ends in first. I've just been lazy not doing it yet. Okay. And then go back down through if you want and just make sure it gets secure. Just done with that. And now you can work this elastic down through the stitches. You kind of need a hook for this. You'll stick your hook up there. You can get it around that button. Grab the elastic, pull it down through. Here's this elastic and wrap it around the button. It's a little loose right now, so just twist it. Do it again. See how you go. Needs it probably twisted one more time. Just keep twisting it till it's tight on there. And there you go. That feels pretty good. You've got your removable fur pom-pom. Okay, I've got ends I need to get weaving in, and then I'll have these cute hats. Here's what the teal version ended up looking like, or this minty color. I still have a ways to go on this one. And then of course, here's the brown one, and I've got to find a fur pom-pom for that. So anyway, I hope this tutorial has been helpful and you'll be able to have success making your OGO mesh stitch hat. And I hope you come show me all the different colors. I think they've got quite a few other colors that you could mix and match. Plus, I would love to see, you know, if you decide to arrange your colors differently. I think there's a lot of different ways you can make this hat look. So be super, super cute. You guys, thank you so much for stopping by. You are so kind. As always, coming to the Daisy Farm Crafter group and showing us your projects and supporting one another. It is really so much fun to see all the different projects, and I love that that you guys are helping out each other, because it's growing and growing. There's 40,000 people now in the Daisy Farm Crafter group, and lots more everywhere else. So anyway, I just really, really appreciate you and all your hard work. So anyway, okay, I've got to get to weaving in ends. We'll see you next time.